Be bold. Be heard. Welcome to Unmute Your Mic with your host, Jessica Bell. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Unmute Your Mic.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unmute Your Mic. My name is Jessica Bell. I am your host from Kansas City, Missouri, and I'm so excited to have Kandace with me. She is also from Kansas City, Missouri, and I'm excited for you all to just hear her story, learn a little bit more about her. I have seen her in passing. I teach her beautiful, wonderful son, and so I'm also excited to get to know her, learn a little bit more about her. I know she's passionate about youth and that kind of thing. And so, Kandace, I want to thank you for being on my platform today. If you could just let us know a little bit about you and we can get this thing going.
Well, thank you for having me, Jessica. A little about me. When people ask me this, like, I get a blank slate immediately. And the first thing that comes to my mind is that I'm a mom. I have two kiddos. I have a 9-year-old Reagan and a 3-year-old Micah, and they keep me really, really busy. I am the curriculum coordinator with Kansas City Teacher Residency, and I currently serve as the 5th District Representative for KCPS School Board. I am like, I have my hand in a lot of pots right now, so I don't know if I'm coming or going, but I think my story starts on the KCK side, born and raised in Wyandotte County. And, you know, I was like not going to go to college at one point. And then I graduated, started working in food service. And my friend was telling me about this full ride scholarship program through UMKC. And, you know, I had wanted to be a teacher at some point in my life. But, you know, dream forgotten, getting through high school. And so she was so excited about it. I decided to apply, and I ended up getting into this program, and I wasn't even going to go to college, and I had my schooling paid for. And so I went through UMKC, through the Institute for Urban Education, and then taught there, opened a preschool, closed the preschool, and then I started working at Kansas City Teacher Residency. And so that's where I've been for the last 4 years. Throughout my tenure there, I've completed my graduate degree, and then started working with parent organizing groups that really inspired me to be on the board. And so April 6th was the election, and I won by, I think, something like 46 votes or something crazy like that. So every vote counts. And here we are, me just like, you know, doing a lot of stuff right now.
Yeah, that is a lot. That's a lot. I mean, I don't even know how you, like you said, you don't know if you're coming or going. And I completely get that because you are doing so many things. And so I know this when you're talking, everything you're doing is basically either like child-centered or helping the parent. And like you said, you weren't even going to go to college. So when you first started doing this and you were like, okay, I feel like this is maybe my passion or the thing that I'm called to do, did you ever have any doubts or hesitations, or was it just like once you started doing it, you knew it was what you were supposed to do?
Yeah, so I grew up the only child. I'm my mom's only child, and so I lived with her. And I was just, you know, because I didn't have anybody around, I just wanted to be the boss, right? So very early on, this is why representation matters. Very early on, some teachers saw this like leadership, capability in me, because I was always organizing kids to do something like, let's make up a dance. You better get in line. I was always the second teacher in the classroom. I remember, you know, loving to go to Sunday school because it was a smaller group and, you know, I could kind of, you know, lead a little bit. I remember my Sunday school teacher kind of giving me that. And then I also would play school with my great grandmother. and with my stuffed animals. And so like, I think me wanting to be an educator started with like this selfish ambition of like, you know, I want to be in charge of everybody. But as I grew, and the more, you know, Black women, a lot of Black teachers like instilled that in me. So I remember Miss Grigsby specifically. She's such a doll. But she actually came to my baby shower my daughter's baby shower. She just stayed in touch with me. But in the 5th grade, I had given a presentation on Madam C.J. Walker, and she looked at me and she was like, after I finished, she got really quiet and she goes, "You're going to be an amazing teacher one day." And I had never told her I wanted to be a teacher before, but she just saw that in me. And so it stuck with me. Again, you know, we get in high school and our dreams are kind of delayed. You know, I babysat for a little bit, but, you know, I was afraid I couldn't pay for college. And now look at God.
Seriously, and you brought up a good point because you said representation matters. And I think having those good teachers, having those educators and people in our lives who can see things in us before we can see them in ourselves. Because had somebody maybe never pulled that out of you, you might have just gone a different route altogether. And like you said, you know, some of us, especially in our community, sometimes a big issue is either not wanting to go into debt to go to college, or just feeling like I need to work or I need to make money right now. And education can sometimes get put on the back burner.
Yep.
And so for what you do and how you advocate for youth and that kind of thing, what are some of the things that you are really working hard on now to kind of shift, like in our community or just in schools in general?
Yeah. I think one thing that I have seen like recurring in my role on the board and in my current position with KCTR, something that I've reiterated and a kind of a theme throughout this journey is like relationships, right? Relationships that's what moves the needle, right? That's what gets stuff done. And I think like that can be lost a lot of times in the hustle. When we look at data and we start disaggregating data, or when we start like having hard conversations about things, I think we oftentimes like lose sight of like the power of the one-on-one. So that's just something that I'm being more aware of, like that I'm being more intentional with, is ensuring that like as I grow in my leadership roles, ensuring that I am having like one-on-one conversations with folks, building relationships with folks, because, you know, we make all these policy decisions, or we can make all these decisions at the top when we're in leadership and forget about who it really impacts, right? And I think the more we're in touch with, you know, with folks, the better off, you know, the more informed decisions are.
That's really good. And I like what you said about the relationships. You know, I think in every area of our life, relationship is important. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like anything that we're doing, it's important that we have the right people surrounded with us, you know, whether it's friends or family or that kind of thing. And so just touching a little bit on your personal side, you know, how have you seen having good relationships in your life really helped you in the goals that you've set for yourself?
Absolutely. So number one, if somebody would have come to me and said, "You're going to be a great teacher one day," and I didn't respect them or didn't like them or didn't feel that they loved me and respected me, I wouldn't have listened, right? It wouldn't have been, it wouldn't have touched me as much, right? Or motivated me as much. I think the second one is like, one thing that my mentor has really taught me is like, how we're all human and we have to extend grace. And so I would say that the younger me didn't value relationships as much, because it was almost this idea of, if you do anything wrong, or if you rub me the wrong way, in any capacity, I'm done with you. I can do this by myself, right? And I think a lot of us in our younger years have like thought that way. But life has taught me that we can't do anything alone. We're not supposed to do anything alone. And so I just feel like there have been so many strong Black women, and I can't even I will never, ever, ever utter the words, I can do this by myself, right? I will never do that again, because I am only where I am now because of who God placed in my life and the women that God placed in my life to like pull me along. So to that point, they have me being intentional about these relationships. Everything that I've gone after, I've opened a business, I've completed my graduate degree, I have, been on the board, all these things. It was not something that I did just because I thought that I'm really great at it. Somebody identified something in me, right? Because I allowed them to get to know me, the real me, where I am. I've shared things with them, and they said, hey, this is a good move for you. Or there's some things that I wanted to go after, and they were like, no, I'm not sure that you're ready for that yet. Here's some things, right, that I see in you that need to be developed first. So relationships not only motivate us and like keep us going and fill us up, they're also, we need healthy checks and balances, right? We need somebody to be like, hold up, bring it back, or you were wrong, right?
Yeah, and giving people that, like you said, having people around us who basically have an open door to be able to speak into our lives. Because if a complete stranger comes up to you and they start saying, oh, they start talking about you or whatever, you're kind of like, who are you? But if somebody you love and care about, that it's a mutual relationship, says, hey, maybe you shouldn't have said this, or maybe you should try this, like you said, you're gonna listen because you know that person has the right heart posture towards you, and they only want what's best for you. And I think that's really important in our lives, in our community, to have people who we can actually listen to, because I think we would get so much further. I think a lot of times there's the stigma of being like the strong, independent Black woman, and I don't need anybody ever, and I can do everything. And it doesn't mean that we're not strong and that we can't do things, but like, why not make it easier and have people around us to support us and lift us up and, help us get to where we're trying to go, instead of taking 30 years like by yourself.
But even take all that. We just make stuff harder on ourselves for no reason. Yeah.
And so with all of these things that you are doing, the fact also that you are a mother, how has it been navigating doing all of these amazing things, but still having to also raise children? What has that been like?
Yeah. So I'll add that I'm a single mom, right? That's a part of my identity. And at this stage in my life, and again, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I got folks in my life that are like riding for me, right? Throughout my campaign, even now, like, have you and the kids had food, right? Why don't you all come over? Just supporting me, even if I just need to like vent, right? If I need to vent and cry because Micah is on his deal, then I can do that. And so I just think having other women, I have support groups. I'm a part of a single mom support group. One thing that I've tried to do is like also, like take time for me, so reading a book, ensuring that I have one thing to myself every day, right? That's a goal. So I don't know if that's like, if that's journaling, or if that's sneaking and eating the ice cream sandwich when the kids go to bed. Just something that I can say, this is for me, and this is what's making me happy in this moment. So again, like having strong relationships and carving out Kandace time.
If you are just now tuning in to this episode of Unmute Your Mic, my name is Jessica Bell. I am your host, and we are currently talking to Kandace from Kansas City, Missouri. Continue to listen here. That's good, because if we don't pour into ourselves, like, then we're no good for anybody else. And you're just operating on E all the time and running around trying to do all of these things. And again, you know, like you said, just if there are people who are willing to help, why not allow them to be there? And
Yeah.
so, obviously, like with me being a teacher, I love pouring into kids, and I love getting to know that even if I don't see like the final outcome of what they're going to become, that I was able to plant a seed in their life at some point. And so, what are some of the seeds that you are trying to plant into your children at this stage in their life?
That's such a good question. I really want to raise confident kids. Confident kids. I've seen, just being in the classroom, a lot of the behaviors and a lot of the things that kids kind of go through, especially in that adolescent stage, is like they don't. It's a confidence issue, right? I don't know that I can succeed in school because I haven't succeeded, you know, traditionally, or you know, I'm not, maybe, you know, such and such doesn't love me the way that they said they do, right? So I'm acting out in other ways. So I think, and I think a lot of those things come to fruit in adulthood too. We, you know, folks can be really brilliant, but life has, you know, beat up on them so much that they don't really feel it. So I want my kids to know, like, no matter what the circumstance are, like, you need to stand in your power no matter what, because you have it, right? So I want my kids to be confident, critical thinkers. And I also want them to have a reverence and a fear of the Lord. That is something that is so super important to me. And really have relationship. You know, I can't say that we are the church going family. We just haven't been, especially post COVID. Are we post COVID now? I think we're still in COVID. How do we frame this? Post quarantine? I don't know the rules anymore. I don't know the rules.
Me either. I don't know. I mean, I really don't.
All I know is that it's 2021. That's all I know. But yeah, I think that, you know, we're not a regular church going family anymore. But I do often talk to my kiddos about Jesus, about God, and I make a point to show them, like, to praise and worship in front of them, and to praise anyway, right? So when we're having a really rough day, it was so funny. I was like, it had to be the worst morning in the world. Okay, I was late. Michael was having a meltdown. It was just, he spilled his breakfast. My daughter had a little attitude on her. So we get in the car and I had to take a deep breath. And Micah says to me, "Thank you, Jesus, Mom. Just say, thank you, Jesus." I said, "You're right. I'm just going to say, thank you, Jesus."
Sometimes kids will say the most perfect things at the right time. It's like, you've got to be older than you really are.
Yeah, it was an eye-opening moment. So things like that, you know. And he'll also pull out scripture on me. He'll say, "Be patient in tribulation and in constant prayer," when I'm fussing at him. Oh, goodness. But
no, but that's awesome. And I think, you know, but I think that's also a realistic thing too. Like, you're teaching your children to have a relationship with God and to be strong and to be confident, but they're also getting to see you walk through everyday life, and that is not perfect. And so they're getting to apply, you know, because, you know, it's kind of dangerous if you raise your children in like this little perfect bubble, because when real world hits, they don't know what to do. And so, though we want to protect our kids from some things, there are some things they actually kind of need to see, and by default are going to see, just because they're around and life is happening. And so, you know, the fact that you brought up, you know, teaching them to be believers and to praise, and what that looks like outside of a church building, because I also think that's important, because you don't want children to just relate church to Sunday morning and then the rest of their life is just whatever. And so what has what role has your relationship with God just played in your total life story up until now?
Yeah. There are some things that have happened, and I'll be like, why is this happening to me? Or what in the world? Like, it's a tornado. And then it all makes sense later. Like, like why it had to happen. So his hand over my life, like, has been something I can't even put words to. Some things that have happened that, like, me not even going to college, and by mere fact that a friend of mine had mentioned it to me, and I got in and she didn't, right? So that was like, okay, that was God. I was supposed to be here. And then, I lost my business, Jessica, and I was heartbroken. Why is this happening to me? And it thrusted me into KCTR, where I needed to build my leadership capacity. I needed to grow my interpersonal skills. I was a coach for 4 years, and as a coach, you have to be personable. And I cannot say I was at that time in my life. So I received the coaching, not because I was seeking it, but because it was forced upon me because of the position that I was in. Getting on this board, winning by 47 votes, like just things like that, where you're just like, that wasn't nobody but God, right?
Yeah, and I think that is a beautiful thing, though. I think to be able to look back on our stories, and when we were in it, sometimes you can feel lonely, like, what is happening? Why me? And then when you're on the other side of it, you really see how God kind of weaved himself into every part of the story, and how if one thing would have been shifted or changed, your entire life would not be what it is right now. And so even when we look at our lives and it's like, oh, our lives are so crazy and we have so much going on, if you were to remove one of those things, your whole story would be different.
It's just
Entirely.
vision. Yes. I'm telling you, like, one thing that I've done, and because I haven't been at church, I have felt kind of disconnected at times, but I constantly journal, right? So I'm constantly talking to God. So I think that is a grounding for me, right? Just like my constant conversations with him. And I don't know. I'm just in awe. I'm in awe.
Yeah, and that personal relationship is the most important of everything, because even when we're going through stuff, it's like we know that we're not alone. Ultimately, we are not going through anything alone. I mean, like you said, you have great relationships in your life. So between having physical relationships with people and then having God walking through, it's like even in our hardest moments, it's like you're going to get through it. He's done it before, he'll do it again, and you're not going to just constantly be stuck in this cycle. And so as a believer and as a mother, what was it like then deciding that you were going to run for this board? Because I did want to talk to you a little bit about that, because you already had your hands in so many other things. So what was it like to take that leap and say, this is what I'm going to do? And what was that process like?
So I have a mentor. Shout out to Spark Bookheart. He is a brilliant guy. He leads Parent Power Lab. So, I had been working with him, and I had been charged with calling parents and telling parents, like, hey, there's an election coming up. What are your thoughts about the schools that you're in? Are you interested in, in organizing, essentially? And I knew that the 5th district seat was up. Well, I came down with COVID, and Spark and his wife sent over a care package. So when he leaves, he texts me and he goes, I didn't know you lived in the 5th district. And I said, yeah, I live in the 5th district. And he goes, so you mean to tell me we've been telling parents that there's the 5th district seat up and we looking for a candidate and all this, and you live in the 5th district? And I said, well, yeah. So we would be talking on the phone and he'll be like, Kandace, you know what I'm about to ask you. And I'm like, no, I'm not about to run for for nothing. Like, I'm not into politics. No. And the more conversations we've had, you know, we started going to board meetings. And the more informed I became, I realized like this isn't, I used to hold this position in like some high regard, like you got to be this big wig to be on the school board. But no, right? That's not how it's supposed to be. You are supposed to be informed, but we need more parents on the board. We need more educators on the board, right? So I'm thinking about all the things I would want to see on a school board, on my kids' school board. And I started thinking like, that's me. Why not? So I ended up ultimately saying yes to something that was very, very scary. One thing that I have dealt with and still do is just like the fear of public opinion, right? And so I don't know, I've been in therapy for the last, I've been in therapy with him for about a year and a half. And at one point I was going to quit. And I think just therapy helped me to realize like it was rooted in fear. Everything it was all rooted in somebody having something to say about me. And we can never grow operating under the fear of like what somebody's going to say, because somebody going to always say something. So I just decided to say yes. I stayed in the race because of therapy. I stayed in the race because of my relationships with folks who said, you can do this. You are overqualified for this. I was open to coaching, open to feedback. I have to be, right? I needed somebody to be like, when you said this was the impact, it was wrong. So I need you to clear it up in this way. You know what I mean? This has been a monumental growth point for me, because I can now walk in spaces and say the thing for the people that need it said for, without fear of what's to come, because I know I'm operating out of love. I know that I have that I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm willing to receive feedback and the coaching that I need. So yeah, it's been a journey.
And that's beautiful. And that's really what being a true advocate is. Being able to go on behalf and talk to the people that need to be talked to on behalf of a lot of us who may never be able to get into certain rooms that you now have access into because of the fact that you said yes. And because of the fact that you were able to override the fears. And like you said, obviously you didn't do it by yourself, but you still ultimately had to dig deep enough to have it in you to say, I'm going to do this. And even when you wanted to quit, you didn't. And I think that is a beautiful story and a beautiful testament for people who are listening, who there is something they feel like they are called to do. And there is somebody in our lives who, like you said, your mentor was telling you, hey, you know, you need to do this, right? And again, even like all of your stories are all starting with a beautiful God point, because it's like you said, you had COVID. And it was when they delivered something to you that he realized you were in the very district that they were looking for. And you may have never spoken up and volunteered yourself had he had not said that. And so I think there's so much beauty in being obedient past our comfort zones. And I think that is what is so amazing about your story. And I'm sad that our 30 minutes are almost up, because I feel like the conversation is just getting good.
I know.
But if you could just take a minute to talk to specifically the woman who is listening. Maybe she is a single mother, or maybe she just has some goals and dreams and she's hesitant, or she has a fear of public opinion. And I think the beauty of you giving your perspective is that your story is ever evolving. So just because we give advice on something doesn't mean that we've got it figured out. It just means that we have enough faith to keep walking through it. And so if you could just speak to that woman who is listening today, and give her just a minute of encouragement.
Absolutely. I think the one thing that I wish somebody would have told me earlier is that therapy does wonders. I can see the trajectory of my life improving And me feeling like I have more of a handle on things when my emotional intelligence grew. And, I have always been, into, I can read a book and I can regurgitate all the information in it. But I didn't understand what was going on in my brain. I didn't understand my triggers. And I didn't realize how I was perceived in certain situations. And so, or it was hard for me to empathize with other people. And so therapy has done me wonders. And I think I recommend it to everybody. I would also say that what happened? Uh-oh. Are you there? Sorry. I got a phone call and it switched off. I will also say that, single moms, single moms are deeply the most committed people that you'll ever meet, right? I had a supervisor of mine tell me, like, if he, if he ever meets a single mom, he gives her, if he's interviewing a single mom, he puts her above on the list because single moms get stuff done, right? But it's so important to take off that cape and just say, I need help, or I'm struggling with this, or this doesn't feel good. And I think it's hard for us to do that sometimes. So do that. Find somebody that you can do that with, because we are not super women. Despite the narrative, we are not, especially Black women, we are not everybody's savior. We are not made of steel. You are human. You have feelings. You have a lot going on, raising children on your own. And so it is so important to stay connected to not only to other people, but to yourself. So take that off, name your feelings, and find some time for you, even if it's, eating a Snickers bar in the bathroom for 5 minutes by yourself. Find that time and do it.
Thank you so much, Kandace. Again, it has been a true joy talking to you. Thank you for sharing your story, the little bits of your story, but I think they were so impactful because I think there are going to be so many people who identify with you, identify with your story. And I'm so excited to continue to watch you grow, watch your children grow, and just see what else, God is going to do in your life. So thank you again for being on my platform.
Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate you.
Of course. And I want to thank everybody for listening to another episode of Unmute Your Mic. As always, you can go to our website, unmuteyourmic.org. Please subscribe, like, and follow. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and any place else that you would listen to a podcast. I want to ask you all to please continue to be bold, be heard, and unmute your mic. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for tuning in to Unmute Your Mic. Be sure to tune in next time when Jessica takes her mic off mute as she continues her journey to find stories that inspire and uplift our communities.